This is Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review with a CFL Week 15 betting preview. We're winding down. We're getting to the last month of the regular season. The games are getting more and more important as we come down the stretch of the CFL season. Once again, 4 games to talk about. Let's get right to it. Let's start with the Friday night game. Edmonton Eskimos traveling to Winnipeg, taking on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Edmonton 6-7 on the season. Winnipeg 8-5. Edmonton trailing the third place Winnipeg Blue Bombers in the West Division by 2 games. So this is an enormous game for them as they try to close the gap on the Blue Bombers in that West Division race. Remember, only the top 3 teams in the West are guaranteed of getting into the playoffs. The 4th place team in the West, which is where Edmonton is right now, they would have to finish higher than the 3rd place team in the East to get that crossover playoff spot in the CFL postseason this year. I don't know if Edmonton wants to leave it to chance by that. I think they want to take care of business by trying to get back up into the top 3 in the West, and boy, a win over the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in this game would go a long way to doing that. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers will be looking to rebound from a gut-wrenching loss last week against the best team in the CFL, the Calgary Stampeders. Just a brutal loss for them. They were down 30-7 at one point in the football game, and it was looking very bleak for the Bombers early in the third quarter. But Matt Nichols and the offense started to make some things happen. Defense forced a key fumble return touchdown, which really turned the momentum in Winnipeg's favor. And they took the lead with 20 seconds to go, 34-33. It looked like Winnipeg was going to get to 8 wins in a row, get a huge win on the road against the Calgary Stampeders, who had won 9 straight games. But boy, it just was not meant to be. As Lee Corso said, not so fast, my friends. Calgary with 20 seconds left, bang, bang, bang. Bo Levi Mitchell, tremendous quarterback, showing why once again, leading Calgary on an impressive drive, 3 quick passing plays, gets them into field goal range. Rene Paredes from beyond 50 yards out makes the field goal with no time on the clock. Calgary beats Winnipeg 36-34, a gut-wrenching loss for Winnipeg. No denying that whatsoever. They thought they had that game in the bank. Did not happen. Matt Nichols, the quarterback, that was his first loss last week in Calgary since taking over as the Bombers' starting quarterback from Drew Willie. He even said it in practice leading up to this game that he refuses to talk about that loss anymore. It was that painful. He just wants to move on to the Edmonton game. I don't think it's going to be easy for Winnipeg to shake that loss in Calgary out of their system as they take on an Edmonton team that has been so up and down. So Jekyll and Hyde, had not been playing very good football, lost 3 in a row, but they rebounded last week at home against a very good BC Lions team and beat them in a very impressive game on both sides of the football. Mike Riley and the offense had a very good game, 27-23 win against a very good BC defense. And on the flip side, the Edmonton defense really bared down in the second half. They shut down Jonathan Jennings in that Lions attack and allowed their team to get out of there with the victory. A much-needed win for Edmonton, snapping a 3-game losing streak, although 2 of those losses came in overtime. So Edmonton has been in a lot of games this season, but closing the deal has been a problem for them. They finally closed the deal with a win in a close game last week against the BC Lions, and maybe that gives the Eskimos a little mojo and confidence coming into this game. We'll have to wait and see. Edmonton has definitely enjoyed playing in Winnipeg. 4-0 straight up, 3-1 against the spread. Last 4 trips here to Investors Group since 2013. On the flip side, Winnipeg, how do they respond coming off that Calgary game? I still think Winnipeg, especially in the last month, has played a lot better than Edmonton, which is why we're seeing them favored here by more than a field goal at home. It's just a question of how they respond in this particular setting. If they are still hungover and just completely, not tuned in to the task at hand playing Edmonton, they could be in trouble. They could lose this game for sure. But if they are willing to just wipe that slate clean, get away from that loss, and bounce back with a better performance, then they can definitely win this game and cover this number. It really all boils down to which Blue Bombers team shows up in this game Friday night after what was just a demoralizing and heartbreaking loss to the Calgary Stampeders last week. On Saturday, we've got the Calgary Stampeders taking on the Hamilton Ticats, first of 2 games on the Saturday slate. Really, to me, Calgary about a 3-point road favorite in this game. They have completely owned the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I mean, it is not even debatable. I mean, Calgary has just completely dominated this series. When you look at the recent head-to-head meetings, Calgary's won 10 straight games against the Hamilton Ticats dating back to 2012, including a win in the Grey Cup. When you look at the series history, Calgary -3 looks pretty cheap in this game. However, they're coming off that. They're in the same spot Winnipeg's in. They're on the other end of the spectrum, though, with that game. They got the last second field goal, 36-34, and it was one of those tear down the goalposts kind of wins for the Calgary Stampeders. I mean, Dave Dickinson, the coach, is running out onto the field, hugging his kicker, Rene Paredes. The team's going nuts after pulling that game out. You just worry about an emotional letdown now. They go on the road to face a Hamilton team that they've beat up on, that they have no major, they're not going to come into this game with revenge motive or a bump in intensity because you just beat this team time and time again. So I'm worried about the letdown factor here for the Calgary Stampeders. That being said, they're the better of these two teams. I don't think there's any denying that whatsoever. They've just been phenomenal. They continue to win games, cover point spreads, 11-1-1 straight up, 10-3 against the spread this season. Calgary's now won 10 straight games in a row, just doing a phenomenal job on both sides of the football. I mean, Damon Claybrooks, the defensive coordinator, the new defensive coordinator, we haven't seen any drop-off really from Calgary's defense. Last week, I think the defense took their foot off the gas pedal. Let's not forget, that was 30-7 early in the third quarter against Winnipeg. They had completely shut down Matt Nichols and that offense when the game was, I don't want to say still in the balance, because obviously it became in the balance in a hurry in the fourth quarter when Winnipeg made that huge, massive comeback. But still, that Calgary defense is good. That Calgary defense is elite. And we've seen Hamilton now the last 2 weeks, and injuries are piling up. They've got cluster injuries at receiver. Luke Tasker, Chad Owens didn't play last week. Terrence Tolliver didn't play last week for Hamilton in their loss to Saskatchewan. We don't know if any of those guys are going to be back here. The offensive line has 2 rookies in it. They're struggling in pass protection to give Zach Collaros enough time to get the football downfield. There's new faces at receiver. There's a lot of injury concerns with Hamilton. It's early in the week, too soon to tell if any of these guys are going to be back in the lineup Saturday for this game. But if they aren't, it's a questionable spot for Calgary. But I'm not sure I can trust Hamilton to finally beat Calgary, even though they're at home, even though they're rarely ever a home underdog like this at Tim Hortons Field. I'm not sure I can trust Hamilton if they're still a banged-up team. You're going to want to keep your eye on the injury report going into Saturday before this game kicks off, because if Hamilton doesn't get some guys and some personnel and some bodies back from the infirmary, they could once again be in tough to snap this big-time losing streak they've had against the Calgary Stampeders over the years. The second game Saturday, Ottawa taking on BC. It's a situation here where the BC Lions coming off a rare loss. 27-23 in Edmonton last week, and a BC team that was coming off a bye prior to that game. Were 7-1 in their last 8 games following a bye week prior to that game against Edmonton, but they really got outplayed in the second half on both sides of the ball. Wally Buono said we didn't execute at a very high level. And one thing the BC Lions have done repeatedly this season, they've bounced back pretty well off a loss. I mean, this is a team now that's lost just 4 games this season. They've been, I still think they're the second best team in the CFL behind the Calgary Stampeders at 8-4 straight up, 9-3 against the spread this season. With all due respect, to teams like Edmonton, Winnipeg, Hamilton, Ottawa, I still think BC the second best team in this league behind Calgary. Jonathan Jennings, the dual threat quarterback, has done a very good job with this offense. It was surprising to see the defense, show a little bit of leakiness last week against Edmonton, but I think they're going to try to correct that here, returning home against the Ottawa Redblacks. And as I said, BC very good in terms of avoiding losing streaks. They have not lost 2 games in a row this season. They're 3-0 straight up, 3-0 against the spread off a loss, and they've shattered the point spread by a combined 41 points in those 3 victories off a loss this season. So BC's been very good in this role. Off a loss, off a bad performance, and they've bounced back strong every single time this season off a bad showing. We'll see if they can do it here against Ottawa. Ottawa coming off a win against Toronto last week, 29-12. They were really in control of that game, shut down the Argonauts offense. Trevor Harris Still having some issues since returning from that injury in terms of, missing wide open receivers has been a problem, I think, for Trevor Harris the last couple weeks. He's really been frustrated on the field. You can see it in his eyes. You can see him when he's holding his head that he's missing some open receivers, and that has thrown off the Ottawa offense. They were better last week against Toronto for sure, but still a little bit out of sync at times in the passing game for this Ottawa offense, and they're going to have a tough task now making the long trip out to the West Coast here in against the BC Lions in this football game. So we'll be seeing what they can do here against a very good Lions defense in this game. We wrap up the CFL Week 15 slate. Toronto, Montreal on Sunday. Lots of things going on in this game. To me, it's a very difficult game to call. Montreal in that home favorite range as a field goal home favorite, taking on the Toronto Argonauts. This will be the first. This is Montreal coming off a bye week. That's number one. Number two, a new head coach for the Montreal Alouettes, Jacques Chapdelaine, in his first game as the head coach after Jim Pop, the GM, stepped down from that role, decided it was not, now was the right time. He's just going to be the GM, as he should be. He was not cut out to be a head coach in the CFL. Jim Pop's never once impressed me as a head coach in this league, so him being just the GM now makes a lot of sense to me. And let's see if this Montreal coaching change gives them a spark. They're off a bye week, time to prepare, get used to Jacques Chapdelaine at the controls as the head coach. Let's see if this gives Montreal a spark here going into this game against the Toronto Argonauts. Their defense is still pretty solid. I mean, even though they've lost 4 straight games, not playing good football, they're 1-6 straight up, 1-6 against the spread their last 7 games. They lost a tough one in Hamilton prior to their bye week, 20-17, but the defense still continues to play well. It's going to be a question of, does the bye week finally make Rakeem Cato get him better in this passing game at quarterback for Montreal, because Cato's definitely had his struggles. There's no denying that. We'll see if he can finally turn things around, get this Montreal offense on track with the extra practice time to prepare following the bye. I don't know if I trust the Toronto Argonauts. This is a very tough spot for the Argos. This will be their 3rd straight road game in as many weeks. They're 0-2 straight up, 0-2 against the spread these last 2 road games, losing 46-29 in Winnipeg, completely falling apart in the 4th quarter, and then really not in the game against Ottawa last week, 29-12. And I don't know what Scott Milanovic, the head coach, is doing with his quarterbacks. Dan Lefevre was playing well for this team. He was not the reason they were losing in Winnipeg the previous week. He yanks Dan Lefevre after the first half against Ottawa, even though he didn't really play that bad, throws Drew Willie in there at quarterback, who's barely been with the team for a couple of weeks, barely knows the playbook, I'm sure, by now, and expects Drew Willie on the road in Ottawa to lead the team to a comeback win. Completely pathetic decision by Scott Milanovic. His team deserved to lose that game, and I've got some question marks. I think Scott Milanovic is on the hot seat. If the Argos flame out here, which is what they've shown signs of doing this last 3 or 4 weeks, he could be on the hot seat as the head coach of this team. No word who the quarterback is going to be. It'll either be Lefevre or Willie, but considering Drew Willie suddenly got all the snaps in the second half, they may go with him this week, and I sure as hell don't trust him. Drew Willie did not play well in Winnipeg. Got traded. Matt Nichols beat him out as the starting quarterback there. Lost his job in Winnipeg. I'm not going to trust him if he gets the start here on the road, even against a struggling Montreal team. I still leave the door open for the Alouettes to maybe have a little bit of a renewed energy with the coaching change and the bye week. Believe it or not, if there's one week I'd look to back this sorry Montreal team, maybe this is the week. I'll lean to Montreal in this game, -3. Don't know if I'll bet it yet, but definitely would lean to the Alouettes before I lean to the Argos in that game. All right, let's wrap it up now. It is time for our play of the week here for Week 15 in the CFL. Continuing to do a very, very solid job with our play of the week selections here in the Canadian Football League. Coming off a game last week, Saskatchewan +5 was our play of the week, a solid winner. They win outright against Hamilton Ticats in that game. We're going to see if we can cash another play of the week winner in the CFL here in Week 15. We're going to go back to the Ottawa-BC game, and we're going to take the BC Lions -5.5, rotation number 284. BC Lions -5.5. to beat the Ottawa Redblacks. Yeah, watch that finger of mine. It's deadly. The BC Lions -5.5 against the Ottawa Redblacks. I talked about it. The BC Lions 3-0 straight up and against the spread, off a loss this season. They've been great in this role. bouncing back very strong with great performances every single time when they've lost their previous game. I think they're going to do the same this week back home against the Red Blacks, who have been spotty and erratic, particularly on the road this season. Let's take BC and lay the -5.5 with the Lions against the Red Blacks on Saturday night, your CFL Week 15 Play of the Week.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.